I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta at a mass vaccination site, and this is CNN.
And good morning. Welcome to your new day. I'm Christi Paul.
And I'm Boris Sanchez. The CDC lifting its pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, with vaccinations resuming as soon as today, but now they'll come with a warning.
And demanding answers in North Carolina after police shoot and kill a man while serving an arrest warrant. 10 officers involved in that incident are off the streets now.
Plus, new details in the investigation into Congressman Matt Gaetz, what prosecutors are now focusing on.
Also, investigators say they have found pieces of debris believed to be from that missing submarine in Indonesia now this morning. It was full of crew members. It is Saturday, April 24th. I know you're still laughing at that.
I love it. It's great. It's only our second time seeing it. It's so flashy. It makes us look really cool. Yeah.
Cooler than maybe we feel sometimes, yes.
That's right.
Good to see you, Boris. And thank you all so much for waking up with us. We appreciate you.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Christy. We do have to tell you about a major development in the effort to eradicate COVID. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine is rejoining the race to vaccinate Americans, just as the United States sees worrying signs that demand for a vaccine is dipping. The single-dose vaccine's label is now going to come with a warning about a rare but potentially deadly blood clot issue, noting that certain women under the age of 50 may have a very small risk. After a 10-day pause, the CDC's advisors decided that the benefits outweigh the very rare danger.
New coronavirus models from the IHME show the current pace of vaccinations will help save thousands of lives by August 1st, but they're worried about a, quote, slow erosion of vaccine confidence, predicting vaccine supply will likely outstrip demand by next month, by May. And in the meantime, the CDC is stepping up its call for all adults to get vaccinated, including recommending pregnant women receive the shot.
CNN's Evan McMorris-Santoro joins us now live from New York. And Evan, do we have a better sense of where demand for the vaccine stands now as these J&J shots come back online?
Well, Boris, that is the big question on everybody's mind. I'm at the American Museum of Natural History here in Manhattan, which is now a COVID-19 vaccine site starting today. And the thing about it is that it's a walk-in site, because there's so much vaccine here in New York, anybody can just walk in and get it if they live in New York at this vaccine site. And also, it comes with this sort of new incentive, where if you come and get a vaccine here at this museum, you get a pass to bring 4 people back to the museum with you for free. So officials here are trying to get this vaccine going. They want people to take it because they are worried that some of the recent news we've seen could depress demand.
With these actions, the administration of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine can resume immediately.
The CDC and FDA have made it official. They've lifted their recommended pause on the use of Johnson & Johnson's single-dose shot, saying the benefits of the vaccine outweigh the risks of potential rare blood clots, and said the label will be updated to warn of blood clot risks.
This is a rare, very rare, but possible occurrence here, and it needs to be treated a certain way. You know, when you think about risk versus benefit, that's what really the emergency use authorization is all about. And that's what they really looked at here. If you look on the left, that's women between the ages of 18 and 49. For every 1 million doses given, we saw roughly 13 cases of this condition of clotting. But at the same time, prevented 12 deaths for every 1 million doses, prevented 127 ICU admissions. That's the risk-benefit sort of ratio. For women over the age of 50, it's even greater, the benefits versus the risks. That's ultimately what this decision was about.
More than 9 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's coronavirus vaccine are ready to be administered in the U.S. Now the federal agencies have signed off on its resumption, CNN has learned. Also out Friday, hopeful new numbers from the University of Washington showing the effect vaccinations are already having on death rates in the U.S.
The key drivers there are, vaccination going up, but also we're past the peak of seasonality for the coronavirus. That peaked in about February, and with every passing week, as we get into the summer, we would expect transmission potential to be going down. So those two forces working together, we believe, despite the new variants, will bring down deaths at least until August 1st in the United States.
The CDC needs to step up outreach around vaccine education after the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine pause, says the CDC director, and more people need to get vaccinated.
In addition to over 65% of Americans over the age of 65 being vaccinated, this is also the week we hit 200 million vaccines in less than 100 days, and the week when all Americans age 16 and older are eligible. I encourage all younger people to follow the example of older Americans and to get vaccinated. And regardless of your age, please be an ambassador for your neighbors and loved ones by encouraging and assisting them to get vaccinated themselves.
So Boris and Boris and Christi, experts are saying that all signs are pointing to a next phase in this pandemic, which is that phase where people who want the vaccine can get it and may have gotten it. And now people are trying to make sure that others get it, because that's not enough people. And we need everybody else to get it. So experts are now turning to a more phase of sort of cajoling people, trying to convince them to get this vaccine. They're hoping that this little blip, this little run with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine doesn't affect that too much. And they're hoping that incentive packages like the one here at the Natural History Museum will get more people to come out and get their vaccine shots. Boris and Christi?
All right, Evan McMorris Santoro. No problem. I've been accused of being salty. Crispy's a new one. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's early.
Good. Believe me, we all are aware. Yes, we're with you. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Let's discuss all the latest COVID headlines with CNN contributor Dr. Abdul El Sayed. He's an epidemiologist and a former city health director for Detroit. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning, Doctor. Let's start with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It was paused for 10 days. Considering what the CDC decision ultimately turned out to be, was the pause worth it given how few people were affected and how many people were already hesitant to get vaccinated?
Well, I'll tell you this. Every decision we can look at and dissect in hindsight, but looking at what the regulators saw, those first 6 cases, and the recognition that they needed to get the information out to physicians who could, if they did not understand what they were seeing with these clots, could have made them worse by treating them with the usual medication, which we know is not the appropriate medication for the kind of clot that we see in association with the J&J vaccine. That they had the responsibility to get this out. And I think that over the long term, this accountability, recognizing that that even with 6 potential cases of an outcome, that regulators are going to look seriously at it, that it's going to breed in the long term the kind of accountability, the kind of trust that people ought to have in the process. I know that it's rather frustrating that after 10 days we, in effect, get to what people thought they already knew. But we have to let science work out its process. And I think it's the right thing that the regulators step back and ask, is there something more here? Is there more we need to learn? And they concluded that that they can put a warning label on this, but they can resume use in all populations that were previously authorized.
Yeah, transparency is critical. I want to bring up something from the former U.S. Surgeon General under Donald Trump, Dr. Jerome Adams. He tweeted this out yesterday, quote, "The risk of clots with J&J is incredibly small, but risk is about context. With 2 other widely, increasingly available vaccines that have shown no risk of such clots, and women being the ones affected so far, hard to justify taking any chance if you have a choice." Doctor, would you recommend a friend or loved one who's a woman under the age of 50 try to seek out the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine before opting for the J&J shot?
All things being equal, I can understand why someone would make that decision. At the same time, there are other considerations that folks have to weigh against, whether or not they want to have 1 shot or 2 shots, which is the most readily available to them. But I can see where the former Surgeon General is coming from, and certainly for folks who are wanting to be extra cautious, that is a reasonable approach. But what's critical here to understand is that scientists took the time to assess any potential risk. There is that warning label in a particular age group among women, but this is still safe and effective. And if you look at the trade-off here, this is still far better. It's far better to choose to take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine than to go unvaccinated, given what we know about the risks of COVID. And it's important always to put costs and benefits in context.
Yeah, and we saw that in the piece that just aired with Sanjay Gupta pointing out, you know, it was a little bit over a dozen cases out of millions of people that have received the J&J vaccine. But for folks at home that want to be extra cautious, what are the warning signs and symptoms that people should be looking for before they seek out medical attention?
Yeah, it's usually the kinds of pain associated with a clot. So it's a bad headache or bad leg pain or a really bad stomach ache. Those kinds of things following the J&J vaccine, particularly among women in the age range between 18 and 49. Those are the things that people should be watching out for, and they should have a low point where they'll contact a medical professional and make sure that they're getting appropriate testing. The key thing here to remember, though, is that the risk of COVID in this case remains higher, and we always have to weigh that against that risk. But it is important that folks understand what they can do to protect themselves and what they should be watching out for in the very, very, very rare case that there may be this particular effect.
All right, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, thanks so much for getting up bright and early for us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the family of Andrew Brown is holding a news conference this afternoon. It's searching for answers after police shot and killed Brown while serving a warrant on Wednesday morning.
His family, alongside many in that community, want authorities to release body cam footage of the incident, something that state law has prevented up until this point. CNN's Diane Gallagher is in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where the calls for transparency are growing louder by the day.
After 3 days of peaceful protest in Elizabeth City, North Carolina,
as you see all these people here, they want answers.
Pasquotank County Sheriff Tommy Wooten revealing 7 deputies involved in the incident that led to the shooting death of Andrew Brown Jr. are on administrative leave, and 3 have left the force on their own.
There is absolutely nothing to hide. I am trying to let the investigation unfold.
Wooten meeting with Brown's family for the first time late Friday afternoon. Though he offered condolences, the family called the sit-down, quote, almost a waste of time.
The same way we went in is the same way we came out. We still don't know anything. When they called the family in like that, I really thought we was going to see the video.
The sheriff claims he wants the same.
The family's not going to have to wait much longer. Their wishes will be granted. I want what the citizens of this county want.
But that state law prevents the video from body cameras worn by deputies who shot and killed Brown while serving warrants from being publicly released without a court order.
We asked our local officials to release that video.
Something the city council called an emergency meeting Friday afternoon to request. CNN has also joined a media coalition to petition the court to release the videos. Officials haven't given many details about the shooting itself. They say deputies were serving both search and arrest warrants issued by an alcohol-drug task force.
This is an arrest warrant surrounding felony drug charges. Mr. Brown was a convicted felon with a history of resisting arrest.
Witnesses claim Brown was in his car trying to get away.
Because it's grass, so of course it's spinning mud. And they stood behind him. I couldn't tell you who shot him. I couldn't do that. But one of the officers, or maybe a couple, shot him.
24-year-old male with gunshot wounds to the back.
A law enforcement radio dispatch from the deadly encounter obtained by CNN does reveal that Brown was shot in the back.
Special advisor Ian Nelson's got one male, 42 years of age, gunshot to the back.
Brown's family says its quest for answers is made even tougher when they think about what his death will mean for his children.
I've never in my life seen a man take up the time and love his children the way that he did. And the way he would just look at them, and they loved him.
Wishing they could see him one last time.
I would just want him to know, as he did, that I loved him. And that I loved him.
Now, the sheriff has said that he's trying to get all of the elements together perfectly before they release this information to make sure that everything is right. But the family says the more time that goes by, the more suspicious they become. And protesters have echoed that same sentiment, saying that they plan to protest every night until the video is released. And then, depending what's on that video, well, they will continue to do so to demand accountability and justice. North Carolina's Governor Roy Cooper tweeted, calling the shooting tragic and concerning, and said the body camera footage should be released quickly. Diane Gallagher, CNN, Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
Diane, thank you. So President Biden is pushing forward with a slate of aggressive policy initiatives right now. What the White House is said to unveil next week ahead of the president's address to Congress.
Plus, new details in the federal investigation surrounding Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, what investigators are now looking at, and a trip that he took in 2018 to the Bahamas, how that plays a role. Next.